And let's get into this, right? We ranked them 1 to 5, meticulously putting the time and effort in to break everything down minute by minute of how we think these will play out. That's not true. But we have ranked the 5 games we believe are the most important on Penn State's schedule. I am pretty confident that we're not going to have the same list here. And if we do, I'm going to be stunned.
Now, I think most important is a very broad category that opens itself to the eye of the beholder. And that's where John and I are probably going to get into some very big differences here.
Do you want to do this 5 to 1 or 1 to 5?
Let's go 5 to 1. Let's build the suspense.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say I'd like 5 to 1 for this more. My number 5 is Nebraska.
Senior day, you're scared.
I'm not scared. I just think it's a good team, right? Like this one's pretty simple for me. I think Nebraska's good. I've been saying this for like 6 years, and so is seemingly everyone else in college football media. So I'm probably going to be wrong again. Yeah, like I think Dylan Raiola is really good, and I think he has a chance to lead them to a better year than they've been having. I think 9 wins, 10 wins is possible for Nebraska. Maybe a chance at a playoff run, although I doubt that. I just think like when you're talking about a quarterback at that level coming into Beaver Stadium and it's potentially going to be cooled out, things can get weird that late in the year. You can get caught looking ahead, although they're not going to be looking ahead to Rutgers. I feel pretty confident saying that. I think that could be a time of the year where they have one loss and like it's all on the line, and this is kind of the last frontier they need to get through to ensure they're either in the Big Ten title game or have a bye, whatever. Like I think it's the last game on the schedule to me that is important. Like that. No, 1-0, they're all important. Yeah, I know.
Well, I think Greg Schiano just put that on their bulletin board in Piscataway, John.
I'll put it on the bulletin board for them.
Print it out and mail it.
Rutgers already lost that game when it was put on the schedule. But yeah, I think Nebraska is a good enough team to warrant like having value late in the season. And the timing, I think, matters for that one more than anything.
Yeah, I did not put Nebraska on my 5. I think you made a compelling case.
Dylan Raiola hater, Audrey Snyder.
Right, that's just what we need. Some Nebraska fans in my mentions. I do not need that.
At Odd Snyder 4, if you want to tweet at her for that pick.
There we go. My 5th choice, which is probably going to raise some eyebrows, is UCLA.
Okay, I thought about this. I do not have them on my list.
Nico Mania might not really be anything if the talent around him isn't there, but I also put it on the, hey, Penn State, again, you're going across the country. Let's drum up the little runway grievances again. Let's get that stuff rolling. I do want to I need to check in on this. If Penn State, if they're still going to fly out Friday like they did last year, if they're going to head out Thursday, if there's anything, maybe lessons learned, best practices from the sports science end of it. So mine is a combination of logistics coupled with who knows what you're going to get from Nico. The on-field performance, I am not really concerned with, but again, we both just did highlight the safeties that we have some questions with. So if my former beloved Vol gives anyone any trouble out there, we'll have to find out. But yeah, I put him in the 5th spot. I'm not worried, but I think it's interesting.
Yeah, and I think the travel was the argument there, right? Like across the country. That being said, as I think James has said this before, and I think Andrew Nelson might have said it too when we spoke to him at an availability earlier in the summer. But like when you look at the data for those games, those cross-country games, usually the better team wins, right? And it's just like so happens that like teams are having to travel to play Oregon. Like, of course Oregon's gonna win that game. You know what I mean? Like that type of thing. And so I'm not overly worried about it. I think there's credence to it at number 5. Like I said, it was an option. To me, like they're not good. Like Nico's good. I feel good about that, but I don't believe in the receivers. Javian Thomas is a good running back, but I'm not a believer in Deshaun Foster, and I think he could be pretty quickly on the hot seat here. I think this is where it actually gets interesting now, though. At number 4, because to me, there's a top 4 that separates itself.
Interesting.
Who is your number 4?
Indiana.
Also my number 4.
Yes,
it is
we align on something.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to align the rest of the way. To me, it is about this is the best team, non-Oregon category, that is coming to Beaver Stadium. And I think that they have a chance to legitimately upset Penn State, right? Like this is the last team on the list that I think maybe has greater than a 25% chance at a win in Beaver Stadium. When I say last, I mean like, them and Oregon.
So
Nobody else.
game is November 8th. That's what I was just pulling up.
November 8th. It's going to be the week after Ohio State, so there could be a letdown factor if they lose at Ohio State that you have to be cautious of. We've seen that before with James Franklin teams that they've kind of let one turn into two.
This is the theory.
Yes, this is the opportunity for that to happen. Fernando Mendoza is a really good quarterback. Elijah Surratt is a really good wide receiver. Mikhail Kamara is an elite defensive end. Aiden Fisher's a very good linebacker. Like, they have legitimate talent on Indiana's roster, and that quarterback wideout combo in Surratt and Mendoza is like, we could be looking at that as one of the best duos of the Big Ten by the end of the season. I'm a believer in Mendoza. I think the upside's enormous. They got so much out of Curtis O'Rourke last year that I think like this offensive staff could do a ton with someone like Mendoza with his talent. But yeah, I think they're one of two teams that can go into Beaver Stadium and win this year. And to me, that makes them an easy 4.
So we're saying you're above the Mendoza line.
All right, boo. Boo, get her out of here.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think maybe in the preseason hullabaloo, the Hoosiers aren't getting as much love as perhaps they should.
It's weird. Everyone's doing the who's the Indiana of this year. Like, probably just Indiana. Like,
right? Yeah, like
Illinois is not that. Yeah, Illinois is not that good. Luke Altmaier is a little bit overrated, I think, at this point. But yeah, I think the Indiana this year is just Indiana, which like I think maybe make the playoff again. I don't know. They're good.
They're going to make it interesting. I mean, I think if you're Penn State, that's one of those where you say, okay, like you're, as much as we want to joke about the early portion of this schedule, and rightfully so, when you get into Big Ten play, like buckle up, it's on. And these are those games where if you just have a not so great day at the office, this season could really fall apart and take a pretty rough turn. So we're aligned on 4.
Real quick on Indiana, too. I think if anything derails them, they have a tough schedule. I wanted to check this to make sure. But I think they can beat Illinois at home, and I think they can beat Iowa on the road, and that gets them to 10 in all likelihood. And 10 probably gets them to the playoff. Anyways, we're aligned on number 4. I think my number 3 is probably your number 1.
So your number 3 is
Ohio State.
Okay.
I don't think it matters that much because I think Penn State can lose and be fine. And that's what this is about, right? Like, I think it's important from a perspective standpoint.
They look if they lose.
I don't know. 11-1, they're in the playoff. Period. You know what I mean? Like, and so I think they can lose. This is it's on the road, so you don't get dinged as much. Like, people are willing to hand wave it away because it's a road game. It is, to me, the ultimate. This is the biggest game of the year, without a shadow of a doubt. From an importance standpoint, from a can't afford to lose or need to win standpoint, I just don't think it matters as much as the top 2, because frankly, I think most of us are picking them to lose this game, right? When I go to do season predictions, we'll have a record prediction at the end of this. I'm going to pick a loss, and I think it's Ohio State, right? Like, Audrey going against the grain now that she's out on her own. Now that she's working inside the Lions.
She's an independent woman. She's got some different thoughts. Yeah.
But no, I just think like Ohio State's really good. Caleb Downs is the best safety in the country. Jeremiah Smith is the best player in the country. Like, you can lose that game, and people are like, yeah, shit happens. Like, it's okay. Fans, to be clear, will be upset. Yes. But I just think from a playoff, this to me, important to me is value added to winning a national title. Like, how important is it to that? And I think you can lose that game, because you can lose that game and say like, oh, they can still beat Ohio State in the neutral side of the playoff. You know what I mean? Like, you lose a different game, you can't say that as much, right? I think to me, this is the game that they want to win. Obviously, James Franklin wants to win it. They all want to win it because they've struggled with Ohio State. But at the end of the day, it just doesn't matter as much from a playoff standpoint. That being said, if we were ranking it from an importance to the fan base standpoint, I think it would be 1, 2, and 3. Like, I think it is just the by far 2 fans, and understandably so. Like, if I were a Penn State fan, this would be the one that I would circle as like, this is the game that I want Penn State to win the most. I just don't think from a resume standpoint, from a postseason standpoint, from a big picture standpoint, it just doesn't matter as much as the top 2 to me.
Now, with all that being said, John, sure, I hear you. But if you can't beat Ohio State with this roster, it ain't getting any easier in the coming years.
No, but I think if you can't beat them on the road, you can still beat them at home. And to me, that's the difference. Site, right? Or a neutral site, yes.
Yeah, I think, even last year, right, when we all looked at the bracket, one of the fun things would be like, man, what if we get Penn State, Ohio State again, right? Like, how can
I think Penn State could have won that game.
And that, to me, is the frustrating, maddening, crazy thing if you're a Penn State fan, which of course, if you're listening to this, you probably are, or else you're
Although
maybe
we do
bored
have
during the workday. I don't know.
we have Ohio State fans who listen to
Oh
this, and so
no! Oh no!
um,
You're gonna fire them up like you
no,
always
oh
do.
no, I think they'll probably enjoy hearing that they're so good that it doesn't
True.
matter if Penn State wins or loses.
No, but I think that's always the litmus test for Penn State is what can you do with this program. And when I sat down with Drew Aller this summer, full story up on InsideTheLions.substack.com. Subscribers have already checked it out. It's been interesting to kind of gauge people's opinions and minds about Drew Aller, as it always is. But I asked him, I said, okay, Halloween weekend in the horseshoe. I know you're going to tell me that 1-0, they all mean the same. Does this one mean a little bit more? And he was like, yeah, just in terms of you're an Ohio guy, you want to beat them. But yeah, it's also important because Ohio State's the team that we want to be. You know, we saw them win the national title. Like all those goals that we want, they achieved. So yeah, I just think when you look at this roster, and again, we're talking about a group of players who've never beaten Ohio State, right? Like that to me is the significance. But I hear your argument with the resume and that you can still lose, and if you're 11-1, you're fine. But that will certainly not be the case with my number 3 team, which is probably your number 1.
I think my number 2. Who's your number 3?
My number 3 are the Hawkeyes of Iowa.
That is my number 2.
Okay.
And I view that as the top 2, I think, are you cannot lose these games. But this one specifically, losing to Iowa means you might not make the playoff because you could lose to Oregon and Ohio State if you lose to Iowa. Well, now, I understand that the Oregon game will have been played at that point, but if you're losing to Iowa, you're probably not in a good place, right? Like, I know there's been a lot of excitement about Mark Gronowski and like what he can do as their quarterback, and I do think Iowa's going to be better than people anticipate because Gronowski is like a legitimate quarterback. We'll see if they let him throw the ball, as Iowa tends to very much not understand the rules of football and that you are allowed to complete forward passes more than 3 times a game.
Pass it along.
Yeah, feel free. But yeah, I just think this is the kind of game that if it's the sort of the okay, you can take a deep breath now, because let's say Penn State loses to Oregon. If they lose to Iowa, it's like they have to beat Ohio State, right? And now you're in a position where your hardest game on the schedule is now a must win. If you beat Oregon, you can't go and lose. Like, you're probably the number 1 team in the country. You cannot go on the road and lose to Iowa, because then Ohio State becomes another, okay, you have to win this game, because now, you know, you might go from hosting a playoff game to like a 10 or 11, 12 seed. The only way that this game doesn't matter is if they lose every game before it, right? Like, that's not going to happen. And so I just think, like, for them to reach the heights they want to reach, this is the bar that has to be the clearable bar that they have to get past, right? They have to show that they can go into a really difficult environment and dominate a team that is not nearly as good as them, because Iowa is good. They are going to have an elite defense. They might have an improved offense. They are not. Yep. Yes, they are not in the same tier as Penn State, Ohio State, and Oregon. They're just not. You cannot go into that environment, no matter how hard it is. An environment, by the way, that I believe it was 2021 they went into, and they were destroying Iowa before they got wrecked by injuries, and it ruined the game for Penn State, and they were unable to handle anything, really, in that situation. You cannot go into that environment with this team and lose that game. And it's possible that it happens. And that's why I think it's the second most important game on the schedule.
Now, the 1-0 focused on this team opponent thing that Penn State has bought into, like we've seen it time and time again. Keep in mind, after Iowa is an idle week, then it's Ohio State.
Yes.
I don't necessarily think Penn State will get caught looking ahead, but Kinnick Stadium is a tough place to play. I mean, I remember, again, the Juwan Johnson game, covering that game, and fans were talking so much crap to Saquon Barkley because the bench, I mean, you are like
it's on top of the
field. I mean, it's when you're walking behind the bench, like pregame or postgame, it's like the width between our shoulders, between the fans and the benches on both sides. And I remember at the end of the game, Barkley turning around and actually shaking hands with the fans behind him. And afterward in interviews, I was like, what was that about? Because they were Iowa fans. And he's like, I just thanked them because they talked a lot of crap all game and it was really good and it motivated me. And like, it was this really, but it's just such a special atmosphere. If you're a Penn State fan going to Kinnick Stadium this year, enjoy it because it is one of the coolest things in college football.
And the wave wrecks me every time. Waving to the
Yes.
Children's Hospital.
Like beautiful gesture. Yes. It's like everything about covering a game at Kinnick Stadium is what I love. John and I will be on the road for everything this year. Flights already booked, all of that. So we'll be there. So I'll take a video of us trying to navigate behind the tight benches. I'll take a video of John crying during the wave.
You might be able to do that. I can't roll it now. It's entirely possible.
I mean, it's been a house of horrors for Penn State just playing Iowa in general. When you think back to the Adrian Claiborne game in a different era, that's when I was a student at Penn State and John was probably in diapers.
That would have been 2007, 6?
No, 9. 9-ish?
No, 8.
9? 8.
I would have been 14 or 15, yeah.
Yeah, so probably not in diapers at that point, but
I would hope not.
But to me, that is the game where you say, okay, if there's going to be like a upset potential for this season, it's going to be there. I was doing a Big Ten season preview for Town and Gown magazine, which if you're in State College, it's out, it's available. A bunch of us on the beat have stories in there. It was a very fun exercise for me during my unemployment era to be part of Town and Gown, and I enjoyed it. But and we'll get to my overall season prediction here in a bit, and I was consistent with my prediction, so I will be on here too when John and I do it. I have Penn State losing one game this season, and my justification is don't be surprised if it's not Ohio State or Oregon, just because Iowa scares me in that regard that they have that upset potential. The crowd's going to be juiced. I mean, I remember post-game, John, a few years ago there, we're walking around at the Taquan Roberson game, and I'm stepping on bottles, like mini bottles of Fireball that were just littered throughout the field. Just fun atmosphere.
Yeah, I could see a world where they go 11-1 and the loss is Iowa. Yeah. That being said, the Ohio State game is looming, so I think if they lose Iowa, they're probably dropping Ohio State too.
At that point, your back is against the wall and you got splinters coming out the other side. Yeah.
Yeah. My number one is presumably your number two, unless you're super high on Villanova. And that is Oregon. Yes. I think Oregon is number one because if they lose Oregon, they then have to win both Iowa and Ohio State, obviously. But largely because they have to go 1-1 in these two games. And I know they can go 10-2, lose to Oregon and Ohio State, and they'll still probably be in the playoff. For the narrative of this team, for the conversation around James Franklin, for the conversation around Drew Aller, you cannot lose both of those games and then silence doubters, right? Like if you go 10-2,
unless you win a national championship,
right? But that's the thing: you go 10-2, you can't beat Oregon at home. You're probably not winning a national title, right? Like to me, that is the most important game on the schedule. I think they're going to win the game. I think they're just better than Oregon. I think that's frankly what it comes down to. I think Oregon will be better than people think because this won't surprise anyone because I've been a Dylan Gabriel hater. But I think Dante Moore has a pretty good chance of being better than Dylan Gabriel this year. That better than Gabriel was in 2024, at least. Maybe not from a number standpoint, but from a helping the team win standpoint and creating, on his own rather than relying on others' great form standpoint. I think he could be a lot better. I just think it's the whiteout. It's the first time Oregon, as a member of the Big Ten, is coming to Beaver Stadium. I don't know. It feels like everything is on the line with that game because, again, if you lose, you have to win both of those other two games no matter what just to make the playoff. And even you can this is the if you lose this game, it creates it's like the biggest win for the haters, right? Like they get to say if you make the playoff that you still haven't beaten anybody because you're 10-2 and you lost to Ohio State on the road and Oregon at home. And maybe you go into the playoff and you play a team in the first round that isn't all that great. You get a win and then you lose in the second round, right? Like you're opening the door for everyone to say oh, here we go again. This game should shut everybody up if they win it. Oregon is that good. It won't because some people like to fire off those takes anyways. But Oregon is good enough that if Penn State wins this game, everyone is quiet. And winning this game pretty much guarantees you a playoff spot because they can lose to Iowa and Ohio State and still make it.